welcome to the April 2023 Newmarket Budget Committee meeting. This is the first meeting of the annual session, and we'll conduct a bit of business today in addition to hearing from the town on the town finances. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with any comments from the public. Seeing none, we'll close comments from the public at 6:41. Take a moment to take attendance. Nick Carpenter. Here. Brian Hickey.
Here.
Richard Lissavoy.
Here.
Danielle.
Here.
Brian Rowley.
Here. Here.
Thank you. And you must be Scott also.
I am.
Nice to meet you, Scott.
Nice to meet you.
And Brian Ward is here, and Amy Tilton is not here. Thank you very much. Right. It's starting out so this evil with such hurry. So the important business for tonight is election of officers, which would be the chair and the vice chair. Do we have any nominations for chairman?
Yes. I nominate Chris Wolf.
Any other nominations? Okay.
I'll second.
Hearing none, shall I close nominations?
It's unanimous.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Vice chairman, do we have any nominations for vice chairman?
I'd like to nominate, oh sorry, go ahead. Just going to nominate Richard Lessavoy.
Richard? Is that something you want to do?
So again, I don't mind doing it, but usually the vice chair is going to be the next chair, right? And I'm not sure I'm going to run again, so my term would be up.
Okay.
So if I'm asked to be vice chair, I'm happy to do it, but if there were somebody else who might be more interested in being the next chair, that would be better.
Okay. And you want to do the CPI
CIP
this year?
Right. Yeah, I'm going to do that, and we're actually we're meeting, like we meet tomorrow night. So we just had a meeting, so that's ongoing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue in that if that's okay with you guys.
Okay, that's great. So you and I talked about this. Is this something you'd like to do?
Honestly, I have too much going on, Chris. I really do. I can't dedicate the time to it, and I really would be reluctant to kick the chair.
Okay.
So I would say no.
Would anybody else like to volunteer for that? For the role?
I'll second Richard. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
I'll,
it's cool
I'll
for
do
you.
it if there's nobody else,
Okay.
but it's not ideal.
It needs to be someone who's been on the board already typically, so we've been on for a year.
Do I have to move over there? Can I stay here?
You can sit wherever you'd like to sit.
All right, good.
negotiation.
Okay, all right, all in favor of Richard Lissavoy as vice chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Okay, that takes care of the administrative business for this evening. So we are here to, Bill Tappan is the, if you haven't met him before, he's the town finance administrator. I don't know if that's exactly your title, but he manages the books, and he's here to tell us about it for the town, please.
Okay. So if you haven't had a chance to review this, I'll go through this quickly, and then if there are any questions, I can entertain those. I don't know if you've really had a chance to look at these, but the report is basically broken up into two parts. The left side is all the stuff from the current year. The right side is the information from the prior years, so you can do a comparison. both in terms of what was budgeted, year-to-date revenue, month, and then percentages. As of the end of March, we were in pretty good shape in terms of our general expenditures in both the general fund as well as the special funds. And so we were at, typically at this point in time, you should be no higher than 75% total spend. And we were at 71%, which is not bad. 2% lower than the prior year, and for the general fund itself, and then when you combine that with the other funds, and the other funds are water, sewer, rec revolving, and then the waste management area. And so you were also at 71% there, which is 3% below the prior year's overall spend. That said, we have experienced some expected cost increases over the year because of the same as everyone in terms of electricity, heating, vehicle fuel. Some of those were unanticipated, as I mentioned in my narrative, and in particular the copper lines went up in cost, partly because the organization that we were using, First Light, really appears not to want to be in that business any longer, and so they raised the price considerably. And our solution to that was just to find another provider, which we did. Took a little while to make the move, but that's now complete. And then, of course, there were other, when COVID restrictions were eased, that also put upward pressure on all kinds of things, and so we had cost increases as a result of that. And then the other thing is just the same thing that many of the other organizations, and not just government, are experiencing, and that's difficulty finding labor. So I think some of the reason why we haven't seen the impact of cost increases as we might is because we've had some positions open that we've had some challenges filling. So that's another reason why I think we're where we are at the end of March. In terms of revenues, the conditions pretty positive. We were at accrued 35 million plus year to date versus 33.5 million same time prior year, which is an increase of 1.6 million roughly. And that was largely due to a few factors. One was a tax revenue increase, which was just over 800,000. Then 131,000 from the state, mostly related to the meals and rooms tax, and then which was given back to the community. And then there was a $337 increase in charges for services, which was largely due to ambulance receipts. So, which is interestingly a moneymaker. Then the recreation fund saw a moderate increase of 51,000, and then the water fund saw an increase of 159,000. So, and then the wastewater 105. So there were that's where your increases come from. And then in terms of grants that come into the community, back in August, so you've seen this before, but back in August we received the second tranche of the ARPA funding, and so that was for $479,269, and the majority of that has been earmarked for COVID mitigation construction work that had been planned at the fire department, and that was to allow for safe distancing for people on overnight duty when they were at the fire station. And that's currently ongoing and planned for completion sometime just before summer. Any questions?
So Bill, when we get that ARPA money, what's the restriction? Like, what could you use it for, and what can't you use it for?
Yeah, it was really restricted, actually. So it was anything related to COVID mitigation, for one. And then there was a whole list of things. Water was a big push. Broadband, increasing broadband in the community, which really wasn't a problem for this community. We're well secured in that respect. The more rural communities would have used it for that purpose. If you were doing something like building either temporary or permanent healthcare facilities in order to help with pandemic response, those are the kind of things that they were restricting it to.
Do you have to report then back, like what the money was used for?
Yes. Actually, I'm just about to hit send on the second report that I've had to do. It's usually what is it, 4/1 through 3/31 of the following year. So they want to know how'd you do from essentially from the beginning of April until the end of March. And why they picked that time period, I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, so yeah, we have to explain. Everything is projectized, so you have to explain the projects that these things are used for.
And I would assume we're sort of done with getting money for this
Yes.
kind of thing? Right.
Yeah, that second tranche that we got was the last one. And that was largely used for water projects and some cybersecurity measures, which is the other part that they were really pushing. And so I combined that and used because I'm in charge of IT as well. And so I used that to harden cybersecurity, or increase the hardening of cybersecurity around the water and sewer. Not to editorialize, but that's one of the big areas right now where a lot of communities have been under attack and then taken hostage essentially in terms of their funds in relation to the water and sewer departments. So as we were building out new infrastructure, what we were doing is making sure that we put this new network behind firewalls. And we're actually going through, I think it's the federal government is pushing this. We're going through a cybersecurity assessment right now. But that's something that the DES director can explain more. Yeah,
It's good, so everyone needs to do that.
without a doubt.
I had a few questions regarding the revenue side, just maybe it's the way that the report is structured. But, for example, the state, we've already received over 100% of state expected revenues. And then it's identified as a negative on your annual budget. So as you're
Right.
exceeding 100%, it's like a negative variance.
That's correct.
Can you explain why it's accounted that way? It's referenced that way on the report.
It is an odd thing, I'll admit. The revenue is always treated as if it's a negative, and expenditures are treated as positives on these reports. So I thought it was weird too when I first started working with them, but that's how it's always been done apparently, and so I'm leaving it that way. So it isn't because we're in a deficit.
Oh, no, I'm not seeing it as a deficit. It's just,
Yeah.
what it does is it reduces the available, what you're monitoring for an available budget. You're not
Right.
identifying the increase over budget.
That's
It's
right.
not recognizing the additional funding. It's sort of subtracting the additional funding.
Right. Yeah, it is an unusual perspective, I'll grant you that.
Of those ARPA funds that were used for all those projects,
Yep.
is there remaining funds available, and is that something that you can hold in reserve for future use, or is that gotta be spent, or it goes away?
Oh, no, we had reserves available, we could have, but essentially everything is gonna be taken up by this final project that we're doing. And in fact, we're just wrapping up the last bit of water projects, and well, they're done, but they're still sending in all their invoices, and the remainder is already booked 100% for that rebuild project at the fire department. sorry to say, there's nothing left. But, I mean, it wasn't a ton of money. It was a little less than $1 million. Put it to good use, though, for sure.
So based on this, it looks like we may have about a year with income exceeding the budget by about 1.7 million.
Well, I always hate making projections like that, but yes, it's possible that we end up that way. To be honest, I'm hoping that we end up in the positive, for a couple of reasons. You know, it's good to have some extra, but not only that, for us to have more unreserved fund balance is a good thing. And largely, I'm thinking for bond reasons. And you go to, I want us to see us get our own bond rating. And so for us to have higher levels of reserves increases the possibility that we'll have a AA minimum bond rating.
So for everyone's benefit here, so if you're running a surplus for the year, the residual of that surplus goes into fund balance, is that?
That's correct, yeah.
Looks like expenditures are right on track,
Yes.
about 3% below anticipated year-to-date.
Anything else?
I said, looks like they're running about 3% below your anticipated year-to-date.
Oh, that was a question. Oh, pardon me, I thought that was a comment. Yes, that is correct. As of the end of March, we were 3% overall below. And again, I think that's partly attributed to, you know, expenses well managed, and also just a result of, you know, underspending in certain areas.
So help me with the surplus. If there's a surplus, it can be, I mean, what's the options with it? It has to go into some, like what happens to the surplus?
Which kind of surplus?
If we have, you know, finished the year with a surplus
Right.
per our budget, what happens?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on how you end up with a fund balance, and then you have certain things that you can't use. You can't use certain amounts of that money because there's requirements that you have to pay, like purchase orders that are out or whatever.
Right, so a fund balance is just the general fund has excess money.
Yes. There are different funds, and each one of those funds will have their own fund balances. The general fund is the one we're concerned about
Okay.
largely because it's the big one.
So we can't use that money to increase like a capital reserve fund.
No, you could.
You could.
You could, but again, what you want. This is what I was mentioning to the chairperson earlier, that it's not that you. I mean, the council can choose to use that money as it sees fit in terms of taking care of the community's financial needs. The issue, though, is making sure that when you have an unreserved fund balance, that you're setting it aside, enough of it aside, so that you have reserves.
But isn't that what capital reserves are for?
No.
No, okay.
Capital reserves, I mean, you know, because you're on the
Right.
committee, and anyone else who served on it knows that those are, you're setting aside funding for specific purposes to get accomplished,
Okay,
right?
so this would be unencumbered fund balance if we have
That's
excess. And that helps your bond rating.
It does, yeah. Because then it says, hey, I've got cash on hand if I need in the case of a disaster or whatever. if, you know, the proverbial bad stuff hits the fan, you have the ability to, you know, defend yourself financially.
And it can't be used in terms of calculating the new tax rate, like it can't go back to the taxpayer.
Well, what often happens, and this is, I mean, it's a good thing, and it can be a bad thing too, depending on if you overuse this. But so, for example, the out of unreserved fund balance, 500,000 was given to reduce taxes, right? So, and communities do this all the time. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, because it does help reduce the tax rate. But you want to do more, whatever you can set aside to make sure that you have enough in reserves is a good thing, above and beyond what you're putting aside for capital reserve.
So when the fiscal year's over, this would be brought to the council as to what happens to it, essentially.
Correct. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So looking at where the surplus is right now, the biggest is in the wastewater fund. So I assume that you know, that would stay in the wastewater
Yes.
fund to support that.
That is correct.
It's an enterprise fund, so it would stay there, yeah.
Right.
It's a wholly operated, individually operated entity. Charges for services, you mentioned earlier that that's ambulance services, things like that, is that what?
That's correct, yeah. Hold on a
I
second.
think in our documents, you've got this note here that says click on the star, on the plus sign to expand a particular department. I'm not sure we have that visibility.
No,
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't.
In the report that you sent.
You don't have the spreadsheet.
That's the department heads that get that. Because no, I'm not gonna say that. Hold on a second, and I can give you a little more detail. It's not a very, in terms of the charges of services, it's a pretty large list, and there are some things that you just often don't see any revenue from, like ATM revenues from the little machine upstairs, you know, that sort of thing. Things like police alarms, drug task force. We are going to be seeing, I believe, parking tickets go up quite a bit because one of your former colleagues is really killing it.
I've been
So I
victimized.
hear-
I've seen it
So,
out there.
right, so
Yeah.
there's, I mean, I'll probably be shot later for laughing about that, but apparently he's doing a great job, and so that I am anticipate increasing in the coming months. Anyway, zoning receipts, that sort of thing.
Just a quick question, the wastewater and water treatment, that's all from user fees, that income, all that revenue?
Yes, it is.
100% from user.
Yes. I mean, there might be like interest from, you know, money in the bank if they have an account or something, but the
But
majority.
no grants or anything like that?
Well, so you're not going to see that in revenues
Right.
like that. But yes, he is a master of grant acquisition. That's how this town gets a lot done. Besides going after loans, which we also do, and then I refinance them to get us in a better position. But the majority of that is user fees, correct?
And any fund balance does not go back necessarily to those, well, the council, I guess, to make the decision to put any fund balance towards those funds, or does it pretty much stay in just the general reserve?
The fund balance for each of the special revenue funds
Would that be
stays
considered
where
a
they
special
are.
revenue fund?
Water and sewer?
Yes.
Yes, yep. Yeah, and in many communities, they're their own districts.
Okay.
This one, it's not.
So excess in one of those enterprise funds could be taken into consideration with the sewer rates, if they had excess. It could benefit. the ratepayer theoretically, right? But that doesn't
Theoretically,
happen.
yeah, theoretically, I'd be very careful with that, but
That's what I
yes.
was thinking. Someone who pays taxes and has a well, even though we know the town needs water to
Right.
make the town survive and everything, still, that you get that a lot with people who don't want to subsidize the water and sewer rates through their tax rate anymore.
Oh, well, then I wouldn't worry about that.
Yes.
Yes. That's
So I need to correct
good
that.
point. No, you're not getting hit. Because what you're paying for is general fund,
Right.
you know, library and, rec revolving, that sort of thing.
So, I have a quick question for you. This is more out of my own curiosity here at the first meeting, so I apologize if this is outside of the scope of these meetings, but you mentioned wanting to attain, I think it was a AA credit rating?
Minimum.
And,
Yeah.
minimum, and I'm curious about what kind of reserve funds you typically see associated with that kind of rating and kind of where we sit.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
a great question. Thanks. It's, so we're sitting somewhere between, 6 to 8%. I think we were at somewhere around 7 the last 2 years. And I could be wrong, I'd need to go back and check to be 100% accurate. But we're really, GFOA recommends, well, the state would like to see you closer to 10%, really no lower than 8. I believe the charter says, or I believe our town policy says that we can't go below 5%, and GFOA recommends 17. If you're at 17, you're killing it, because then you're looking at truly having enough reserves to handle just about anything, and you're looking at a AAA rating like Bedford, for example. I don't know that Durham has its own rating, but I believe that I heard recently that they were looking at a AA, and it could be better than that. So, but that's what this is a really solid community, and has done nothing but improve its financial positions over the last 10+ years, and so I see us doing exactly that in the future. It's just a matter of figuring out how you get there,
Sorry.
Any other questions for Bill?
I was just gonna have, sorry, 2 quick follow-ups on that, and apologies. What is GFOA?
Oh, Government Finance Officers Association.
Thank you.
Sure.
And that's, those percentages are of annual budget, or, sorry? when you
No,
mentioned-
yes, that's correct, yeah, of whatever your annual budget is.
Thank you.
If I'm wrong about that, I'll correct it later. But yeah, it's something I think about usually once a year, as we're getting done with all of our financial reporting, and then the auditors come in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All set?
So when would we actually see the whole year, like the result? When would that happen?
Well, the town, there's a town report,
Right.
because the information from the audit comes there.
Mhm.
And then when the year end is done, I can also provide, an unaudited
Sure.
end of year financials, which we typically do. That'd be Q4. Yeah. And you're certainly welcome to get a copy of the audit as well.
Right.
Yeah, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Welcome.
Bill.
We'll see you in another 2 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. What I just passed out was the proposed calendar for the year. And I sent that around as an email beforehand, but is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead with that calendar, and I'll give that to Wendy.
I just have,
keep track of everything.
no,
Um,
just have one question about May. Is there a reason we're Usually we do this on the last Monday of the month. May 22nd's the second to last one. I'm just wondering if there's a reason or. Yeah, the May 29th.
The next one's Memorial Day.
Oh, that, never mind. That may.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Okay, there.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, so we passed around the minutes for March 20th. I didn't make copies for everybody again. There was one adjustment that I had asked them to make, which was they said the next meeting was March 20th and it's April 24th. But otherwise, the minutes were fine. Did anybody have any other comments they'd like to make on the minutes? No? Okay, can we approve the minutes of March 20th as submitted?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I would abstain because I wasn't here.
And I'll abstain.
Very good. All right, I meant to bring copies of the town charter. I'll bring those next time. Our next meeting is May 22nd, and the school department will be presenting their Q3 status. And let's see, there's one other thing. I think, yeah, I think that's what I have.
I would just share with you that the CIP is continuing to meet outside of the normal, process, which is great, because we're trying to get prepared to do a more comprehensive, have a more comprehensive process with better forums and better coordination. So I think we're meeting tomorrow, and then I think we're going to meet in May with the town manager. We're trying to meet with him to sort of get his input on what we're doing. So that's what's going on.
Mhm. That's great. So the other item I was thinking about was, I was talking to Steve about department meetings. We had done that, I think when you guys joined the board and so forth, we had done that. So if it's something you'd like, we'll put together a list of days with different department heads. So give you a chance to see what's going on. It's really quite educational, especially, talking to the chief of police, the fire chief, and the Sean Gregg, who runs the wastewater. That's actually a pretty interesting conversation. So for next time, I'll send you an email on it beforehand, and then we'll codify it at the next meeting for when we do those little field trips. Okay? All right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? No? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Chris.